And the Atlanta Hawks pull off an epic comeback, or it's perhaps an inexcusable collapse, depending upon your point of
what
view.
side you on, Matt?
I don't know.
It was ugly.
That's for you to determine. It's Playoff Central Live, presented by AT&T 5G. It's Quentin Richardson right over there. 3D, Dennis Scott. I'm Matt Weiner. The Hawks outscore Philly 40-19 in the fourth quarter. The 76ers led this game by 24 points with 14 minutes left, and somehow on their home floor come up empty. And now the Hawks are a game away from advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals with a win here in Atlanta on their home floor. Q, how did this happen?
Got to be more careful. Oh, my goodness. There's no way did we see that coming. When they went up 24, 26 points, I did not foresee Atlanta making a comeback like this. But I think it was they let it get away from them. I think they left the starters out a little bit too long. When they got back in, they were only up by like 10 points then, and I think, you let them get a little too close. 14, 16, you got to send them back in when you up 20 plus. And, they gained confidence, and they just chipped away at it. And then you get to a point, 3D, you know how it is. You got nothing to lose as a team. We here, you let us back into it, we might as well get you now.
Yeah, get you now. You look at Lou Williams with 15 off the bench, and you look at Gallinari with 16. Those two guys carried the scoring load versus the Sixer bench. But I go back watching the Hawks warm up with Believe on their shirt, Matt. Trae Young believes. He's not buying into this is my first time in the playoffs and I have to learn something or I have to lose first. They had the right veterans around him in Gallinari and Bogdanovich, guys who've been on some decent teams, but now they found a young team that's want to win. And Nate McMillan, once again, we got to give Nate a lot of credit. This team played a great second half, subpar first half, down by 22. They fixed it in the second half.
It is amazing. Philly was 5 of 17 in the fourth quarter, 0 of 4 from three-point range. And you mentioned maybe Doc Rivers might have left the starters out a little too long. Atlanta went on a 15-2 run at the start of the fourth quarter, spanned the third and fourth quarter to make it 87-76, and that's when Embiid and Harris came back in the game at that point. But maybe it was too late at that point because Embiid, as great as he was the first three quarters of this game, wasn't really a factor late.
The other part of that, I think, is that they were up so big. I kind of believe that when Joel and those guys came out, I think Joel thought he was done for the night. Yeah. You up 26 points that late in the game, and they send in guys like that, and you see Dwight pointing at him over there on the bench. Good job. Like, I got the rest of the way. Like, I think he might have shut it down mentally a little bit. Like, okay, we got this one. I could rest up. I could kind of hear. Then they got back in the game, and now you got to turn that switch back on and switch back into competitive mode, and I don't think he was able to get back there at that point.
Yeah, he didn't seem – it's a little like what we saw in Game 4, but on a smaller scale in the fourth quarter. He didn't seem as engaged maybe. And, in terms of shot selection, it wasn't the dominant force he had been in the first quarter when he knocked down his first 8 shots. Yeah,
by the time he got back in the game, Matt, the Hawks had found their confidence on the offensive end of the floor. So now the Sixers are taking the ball out of the basket and walking the ball down the floor with no tempo. Versus, to your point, Matt, earlier in the game, they were getting stops. They were getting beat in the mid-post. Obviously, he was shooting a 3 early in the ball game and making his free throws. Now you come back in on your heels trying to hold the lead versus playing downhill and uphill. And I think it was just too late then because the Hawks really believed they're in the last 3 minutes of the ball game.
Just a remarkable turnaround, and the Hawks are now a win away from returning to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2015, which was their first trip to the conference finals here in Atlanta since the franchise moved way back when. In terms of Philly now, I hate to get too much into the psychology of this, but you've blown back-to-back double-digit leads, 18 points in Game 4, 26 points here in Game 5, and now you're going on the road. How do you recover from that?
I think, like you said, right now it's win or go home for them. They have, no choice. They have to go on the road and do something that's hard to do. And those guys got to step up. They got to come together and help Joel Embiid, because I really feel like he you know how it is, 3D. When we come out of those games and he's already playing with a pre-existing injury, or so, meniscus tear, so he's really playing off the whole the momentum, and he's getting juiced up. He's got all the adrenaline for him. When he subbed out of that game at the end, I think he might have mentally eased up, and then the adrenaline trying to came down, and then you in a predicament when you got to go back out there to play, because he wasn't able to recapture it, and that's happened the last 2 games. And I think that's something to look at with that knee injury that he has. When you start off with the adrenaline, and when it wanes, that feeling starts to come back. So I don't know if that's what was going on, but he wasn't able to recapture it in these last couple times going back into the game.
And if you're watching the TNT broadcast, you heard Stephanie Reddy reporting on Embiid's reaction to Clint Capella's comments after Game 4 about, when he gets fatigued, that's the time you go at him. And maybe that combined with the injury, maybe that's a real thing. Because remember, he had his first 8 shots in this game.
He was rolling.
Started
4
off
of 12.
like gangbusters.
4 of 12 after that 8 for 8 start. And in fact, it's a little worse than that because he was 11 of 12, I believe, at one point, which means he was one of his final 8 down the stretch.
And then that insult to injury, man. He was 11-11 from the free throw line until he missed
the last
free
two
throws.
Yeah.
So he's having a great ball game. To your point, maybe fatigue sets in, or maybe you go to the bench and you sit down and you just kind of lose your flow. But upstairs, if we have the video down the stretch of Gallinari posting up against Seth Curry, if we could play that video real quick so we can show the fans at home that Doc Rivers has to make a decision. That is shooting over a chair. Why? It's a late game situation. We love Seth. We know he's offensive minded. Why not ask for help, Q? Why do we not check our ego? Because if Doc Rivers don't fix that, what's going to happen is he's going to come over here again, man, and say, hey, Seth, how you doing, buddy? Give me the ball. Trey, I'm just going to sit here and do this all night long. Give me the ball, Trey.
And what is he doing right now?
He's shooting over a chair, baby.
Okay.
He's just shooting over a chair all night. Because Gallinari's 6'11", right?
That's 6'10",
6'11",
6'11",
and Seth Curry's 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
And he put his hand up?
Yep.
I don't even see that.
Hey, I see the jib. I see the other side of the studio over there. I see over there. Hey, man, you look good. Matt got on tennis shoes. I can see everything.
We don't tell.
Oh, my bad, man. I'm sorry. I saw a little bit. My bad.
You don't see the little guy.
Well, they picked out that matchup.
Yes. So Doc, you've been there before. Why do that to Seth? Just go ahead and double team, get the ball swinging, get the defense scrambling, and maybe get a missed shot. Gallinari is going to make a 10-foot turnaround shooting over a chair most nights. Great offensive player. He's been really good for this team. He had 16 off the bench on 6 of 10 shooting and knocked down 3 of his 4 threes. And, I know we're talking about a lot of what we're talking about is how things went sideways for Philadelphia, and that's a real story. But you got to keep playing. If you're the Hawks in the last 2 games, they've been able to do that.
You got to take your hat out to them. I don't know the exact record, but if there was a Coach of the Year award for the point when Nate McMillan got that job, he would be it. Because, that speaks to, his makeup, the way he played defense, the way he was a tough player. It takes toughness to persevere through 26 points being down and to just keep fighting and fight your way all the way back into that game. And they did that tonight. That takes a characteristic from the team to be tough, and then they all had to be in it together because during that run, Trey was on the bench at one point with a heat pack on his shoulder. So this was the others, Lou Williams and other guys making plays and stepping up big.
I was just going to get to Lou Williams because how big was Lou Williams tonight?
Lemon pepper Lou, baby.
15 points in 22 minutes. The Hawks outscored Philadelphia by 31 points in those 22 minutes with Lou on the floor. Now, at this point in his career, maybe he's not doing that every night, but you knew he had 1 or 2 of those per series still left in him. He was huge.
No, it was huge, Matt, because when you look at the Sixer bench, there is no firepower coming off that bench because Korkmaz goes to the starting lineup. He has a big, Game 4 knockdown shots, but now he's not hot tonight. So think about it for a second if you're Philly. Embiid has a huge game. Seth, we talked about in the pregame, he should have a big game. Tobias Harris, I love you, young fella. Where you at? Can't find
Tobias.
you. Matt, that's one of these games where he has to step up and play well at home, and that's something that's going to hurt. And now you ask yourself, where can you find your confidence to go on the road and win a huge Game 6?
And not only didn't shoot the ball, made some mistakes.
Yes, just wasn't there. Just wasn't there. Missed rebounds.
Jim Jackson pointed out he messed up the spacing on an offensive possession late in the game as well by bringing his man into the play.
Yes.
Just not a good night for Tobias Harris or the Philadelphia 76ers. Hawks pull the rabbit out of the hat tonight, down by 26. They escape with the win. Here's head coach Nate McMillan.